This is the Student Leadership News Podcast.
Hello everyone and welcome to this episode of the Student Leadership News Podcast. This is Ronan.
And I'm Cameron.
And we're coming to you from Bendigo in regional Victoria. It's been fun so far, hey Cam?
It has. We've gotten a lot into this afternoon. We've gone for a run already.
Yeah, a bit cold out there, but all good.
Yeah, and then we did the crazy thing after this cold run. We went and jumped in a even colder pool.
Yep, that was smart. Colder and colder again.
And then what did we do after that, Ronan?
The reverse of the cold. We went and had Mexican for dinner. And so that was extremely hot. So we went from cold to hot.
And even the cold stuff at Mexican was hot. With some chili ice cream.
Pretty much, that's right. We had chili ice cream there. So anyway, been a good couple of hours and We've got lots planned for this podcast. As always, we want to have a lot of fun, but we also want to be helpful to teachers, to student leaders themselves, people who are passionate about student leadership and want to share some helpful things with you in this episode.
Exactly right. Now, you can find this in all the usual places, Twitter, Facebook. You can look on our website if you want to find the podcast. You can just search studentleadership.news/podcast. Search on any normal audio area such as iTunes. I don't know, anywhere really. You've got an unusual app that you can
find.
Mine's
called Castbox that I listen to, and I love my podcasts there. And I found it there, so it just goes everywhere.
Yes, it does. Now you can find us all there, and hit us up and let us know if you're enjoying the podcast.
Absolutely. We'd love on any of those platforms for people to leave reviews, questions and comments via the studentleadership.news website. You can get in touch with us using the contact section there. Suggestions that you have for us. But if you've got questions, we'll get to a question time segment later on. But if you have questions you'd like us to answer, then send them through to us. We'd love interaction online with you, our podcast audience.
Now let's jump straight into this episode of the podcast with our first segment, Tour Tales.
Tour Tales.
Tour Tales, Ronan, one of my favourite segments, and it's one of those times where we share something that's happening while we're on the road running these student leadership events all around Australia or New Zealand. You are going to tell us this story. What's this tour tale?
Okay, it took place last week, and I realised you weren't there. So not only is this new for the podcasting audience, it is new for you too.
Oh, great.
We're in country Victoria, going from a town called Sale, heading back towards Melbourne, the capital of Victoria. It's a few hours drive. And we've been in the car for a couple of hours, and one of our team members, Caleb, halfway through the drive when people were starting to doze off and feel a little tired, van full of people, he just went, "Oh my goodness!" And we just went, "What?" And he goes, "Do you know what today is?" And we thought he's forgotten a loved one's birthday, or it's like important National Memorial Day for some reason, and we're terrible for missing it. And he says, "It's $12 dozen day." And we went, "Oh my goodness." Then we went, "What is $12 dozen day?" And Caleb told us it's the day that Krispy Kreme donuts sell dozens of donuts for $12, which is around about half the price of what they normally are.
That's amazing.
Now, we're still got a long way to go in the drive. So we're in the middle of country Victoria. How are we going to find a place that is going to do this? And that it wouldn't totally throw out our drive that was already going to be long. So we said to Caleb, look, if you could find one that's just a slight detour off the highway, then we'll go and do it. Does anyone really want donuts? And no one really wanted the donuts. But Caleb just wanted to make sure that we didn't miss out on one of the most important days of the year, $12 dozen day. So he was on the app pretty quick, worked out that there was one 20 minutes up the road just off the highway. And so the GPS was tracking to there, and we pulled off the side of the road to the Krispy Kreme. There, in shining all its glory, was the Krispy Kreme outlet off the highway in Victoria. And so we went inside and joined the line with about 100 other people who were all there for $12 dozen day.
And was it worth it?
The longer we spent in the line, the more we realised we needed to buy more to make it worth it.
Okay.
So the whole idea of let's just get a dozen and have it for the novelty turned into maybe we should get a second dozen. Maybe we should get a third dozen.
How
and
many
milkshakes.
Did you get?
Yeah, we walked out with about 40 donuts and 5 cold drinks from the $12 dozen day that nobody really knew about. And we had donuts for the next 4 days of the tour. So much so that when we didn't have space in luggage to put the donuts anymore, Caleb was putting them in plastic jugs that he was borrowing from the hotel for the day and all sorts of things just to make sure that these donuts made their way around the place with us for the next few days. So
commitment.
It was good. So in case anyone else missed out on $12 dozen day, you'll have to look forward to next year. It was the highlight of my week last week, seeing Caleb get that excited. Yep.
Wow, yes. And did you Did you actually finish them all?
Yeah, we did finish them all. Took a few days, but we had 36 donuts plus a few extra 40-something donuts over the next few days.
Oh, great job.
Yep, shame to say, and that's hence the reason we had to do the run this afternoon that we talked about before. Anyway, last week's highlight of the tour.
Sounds great. Well, that brings us to the end of that tour tale for this episode. What are we jumping into next, Ronan?
We're going to jump into our next segment, which is Question Time.
Question time.
Okay, before I get to this week's question, let me reiterate what I said at the beginning. We'd love people to submit their questions to us, and they can do that via commenting on whatever platform it is that you're watching this. We'll get a hold of that, and we'll make that our question for next episode. And this week, the question comes to us from Catamatite Primary School. There you go. Don't know if you know where that is, Cam, but they seem to have good questions, hence the fact we're going with this one. So Catamatite Primary School asks us this question. How do you, as student leaders, keep momentum going for a positive contribution that you're implementing at school? So I assume they've got something that they want to change. That's my read of the question. And they know, or they're currently experiencing, that it's tough to keep momentum for the change or the activity. So what do you think?
Good question. I think sometimes when we think of ideas that we want to do or changes we want to make, we sometimes think that, the day that we're going to make the change, everything has to be done on that day. And so we try and make this big change, we try and make this big contribution to our school. And sometimes that will work and sometimes it won't work. And often what happens is when we put them all on this one day, if it doesn't work, then we lose our momentum for actually trying to keep the idea going because we haven't seen any positive feedback for it. So I think a great thing that you can do when you're trying to keep this, when you're trying to implement a positive contribution, you can actually do it in little pieces. So you can have over time little goals that you have where you implement this change. You can think of maybe your big change gets split up into 5 things, and over 5 weeks you implement one part of that change.
And if you design it properly, then if one of those parts doesn't work, then 4 of them still have, and you've achieved some part of your change that you wanted to in your school compared to that one thing.
And the great thing about doing in little pieces is one of the most important things about change is evaluating. And when you evaluate something, usually you can then change other things. And so if you're doing over time, if you're doing little things and you realize the first one doesn't work, or this idea isn't going to be implemented exactly the way you would like to, you can evaluate it, look at it, say, how can we change this? How will it work better for our school? And then move forward from there and change it a little bit and make sure that the next ones that you implement, the next changes over that time, actually have the desired results.
So the hamburger principle, it's that anything you want to achieve is best done in little bites rather than trying to do the whole thing in one lot.
I always like how you have the ability to relate it back to food.
Absolutely.
Ronan.
Ever seen someone try and eat a whole hamburger in one bite? It becomes an absolute mess, right? Leadership's like that, bit by bit, and perhaps you're able to accomplish it. Yeah.
Excellent. Well, there's your answer for that question. That's
Excellent.
how you can keep the momentum going when you're trying to implement that positive change.
Certainly hope that's helpful for the students at Catamatite Primary School. So we go to one of the segments that we love to do each time where we really get into some meat of the topic. Oh, there's a food reference again. Anyway, meat of the topic. And that is our segment Top 3.
3, 2, 1.
Top 3.
Okay, Ronan, top 3 this episode is top 3 ways to deal with criticism.
This is an important one. Like, I think all leaders deal with criticism or have to deal with criticism, face it at some point anyway. Yep.
Okay, Ronan, give us number 1. What's the first way that you can deal with criticism?
Okay, the first way is to remember that your own voice is the most important. Meaning you will hear other people say things to you, but you need to remember what you say to yourself is the most important. So remember to be a positive voice. Also remember that when you are positive, that can be something that helps you deal with the fact that there are negative voices around you. So just because other voices are negative and people are criticizing you, really having a go at decisions you're making, failures that you've got, realize that your voice staying positive is probably the most important. So that's our first way. Give us number 2, Cam.
Okay, the second thing you can do is look for the truth in constructive criticism. Yeah. I think sometimes we hear feedback or we hear criticism and we automatically take it as a negative thing, something that they're coming against us. They don't don't want us to succeed. But often by stepping back, looking at it as a whole, we can see positives in what they're trying to do. They want you to succeed most of the time. The people around you really want you to succeed.
Definitely.
And criticism is generally there so you can be even better. And so by looking for the truth, looking for the things that actually will help you get better, and then implementing those things, that's a great way that you can deal with criticism. You can look at the things they're saying and say, what's the truth in this, and what can I actually take out of it?
Yeah, definitely. And I think what's interesting, we'll move to number 3, is that occasionally there will be people that don't want you to succeed.
Yep.
There are people who themselves have an issue. So to succinctly give you the third thing, it's that sometimes the criticism is the other person's deal. And you just need to not absorb it. So you need to hear somebody criticize you and sit there with a smile on your face and not let it affect you, and walk away from that and say, that's because they're feeling upset, or that's because they're feeling insecure, or that's because it's in their nature. They're a bit jealous or whatever it might be. We don't have to think less of that person, but we don't have to take on the criticism as well. So sometimes the criticism is the other person's deal, and we don't need to take it personally. So there we go. The positives and negatives of criticism there, hopefully for people, because at some point, every leader's going to face it.
Yeah, always. And often criticism comes when you're doing a good thing. I think that's often what we forget when you're trying to implement that change that we talked about before. Criticism will come, and so don't.
People are noticing what you're doing,
exactly,
and even if they're threatened by it, that type of thing, it's you're doing something good. There's always positives to be found amongst that criticism. It's just got to deal with it.
Yep, exactly right. So there's the top 3 ways for dealing with criticism. Let's jump into our last segment for this podcast, which is my favorite idea.
My favorite idea.
Okay, Cam, before we get too far into this segment, my favorite idea, I'm going to hijack it.
Okay.
Off script for the moment. In this segment, we normally like to talk about something we've noticed around the place that we think is a wonderful idea that student leaders have put into action.
It's really a great thing.
Yes, it is a good thing, but I've decided, despite popular opinion, I'm going to hijack it. I want to draw your attention to something that I have noticed around the place at the moment.
Okay.
It's not a valuable student leadership suggestion, but it's honest, okay? It is the amount of students at the events that we go to who have all adopted the dance move that was made famous by Katy Perry at one of her concerts last year, which has affectionately been referred to as flossing. Okay, you know the one I'm talking about.
I know the one.
Yeah,
flossing.
And it's like hands at the front, hands at the back, hips side to side.
Backpack kid, whatever it's called.
Yeah, the little. It was because a kid with a backpack. Like, he was the guy who invented it. Katy Perry saw it. She said, do it on stage at my concert. Yeah, and then it became worldwide craze. You did not know that.
No.
That's my understanding of it. Anyway.
Okay.
And so now we have kids everywhere. Like, primary school, high school, they just love that move.
They love it even more when you do it.
No, I'm not
they
good
love
at
it when
Anyway.
you do it, right?
And they call it flossing. If you can't picture it, it's because you're moving your hands from side to side, and then front and behind your body. It's just so weird. But it caused me to ask the question, all right? This is like... Talk about my favorite idea. It's not the first normal daily activity that I don't know if you floss normally every day, but you get the idea, right?
Yep.
Yeah, okay. It's the normal daily activity that's turned into a dance move. Okay. It seemed like it used to happen a lot in the 70s and 80s, so I'm told. Okay, I'm not that old, but so I'm told. Whereas it's like the new everyday activity that's become a dance move. Flossing, okay?
Yeah.
Like dental floss in your teeth back and forward has become this move. So, Cam, what are your favorite daily activities over time that have become dance moves? We see a lot of them with the young people that we work with all the time. I'll get you started, right? It's the shopping trolley, right? The shopping trolley. People turn it into a dance move, all right? It's just everyday activity, and somehow it hits the dance floor. We've got swimming, Like, swimming is designed for sport, physical activity, or perhaps as a life-saving technique. It was never designed for the dance floor, but people have done that. Yeah.
I got one. Along the swimming theme, there's the surfing. So, everybody get down surfing, and people often do the
correct
the sound effects like da-na-na-na-na-na-na.
That's true. And those people don't know how to surf, actually, but they do on the dance floor.
Exactly right.
Yep.
Another one is picking apples. I mean, it's not an everyday thing.
It's not. I can't remember ever picking apples, but
But most people who, like, surfing isn't always an everyday thing. Like, there's people who go out and pick apples every day, but, like, the picking things off, like, the tree. And another one, I like this one in
you've
particular.
got heaps. All I wanted was your favourite one, but we've got lots.
The lawnmower is my favourite one.
The lawnmower.
That is something that's great because
every day
there's multiple
lawn.
moves.
Yep, like washing the hair. That's it. Or like people on the dance floor just getting loose with the washing of the hair. Yep. There's this other one, like hands up in the air, called the salt and pepper shakers.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. Weird as anything. Okay. Let's take a device off the table used to season my food and turn it into. Anyway. I just wanted to draw the world's attention to the fact that we have another one on the list now, and it is flossing. After decades of people wanting another daily activity, then the world has spoken, and flossing has become the official dance move.
People got what they wanted.
People got what they
and that's
wanted.
what matters.
Anyways, sorry for hijacking the segment. Well, it means we've got better content for next time. But just had to draw you, and I wanted to know what your favourite one was, and I'm going to settle on picking apples.
Yeah. It's always a great one, that one.
Anyway, on that note, we like to have fun in these podcasts.
We do.
Hopefully we have, amongst the meat that we talked about, sharing some ideas, and we'd love student leaders to continue to share ideas with us so we can pass them on through this podcast.
We sure would. So thank you everyone for joining us for the 4th episode of the Student Leadership News podcast. Make sure you leave a comment, a like, something like that, so that we know how you're enjoying.
We like it. We want to know if others like it too.
Exactly right. And we'll catch you in the next podcast.
Look forward to it.
Thanks, guys.
Bye.
Thanks for listening to the Student Leadership News Podcast. Interact with us on social media and follow the news online at studentleadership.news.